Hi and welcome. Today we're going to be looking at the multiple Google Maps API error. This error is generally seen when the Google Maps API is being loaded more than once into the window. The Google Maps API does not support multiple instances running in a single window, so this will create multiple errors, which could cause the map to malfunction in all sorts of ways. So, what are some of the visual signs that we have a multiple Google Maps API error? Well, one of them is that the map will be unresponsive, meaning that when I try and drag this map across, it simply doesn't move. Normal input such as zooming or changing to satellite view simply does nothing. As you can imagine, this can create quite a bit of frustration on the user side. So if you haven't gotten into the habit of loading a page with the console open, I would suggest that you get into that habit now. Loading a page with the console open is crucial to finding JavaScript errors from the get-go. So you'll notice that the first error we see when we load a page with multiple Google Maps APIs included is a simple message from the API stating that you've included the Google Maps API multiple times on this page, and this may cause unexpected errors. So how do we find the multiple API calls? Well, firstly, you're going to hit Ctrl-U to open the source of the page. As you can see, we now have the HTML contents of the page in front of us. So what now? What do we search for? Well, you're going to hit Ctrl-F to open up the Find tool, which allows us to search for keywords on a page or in a document. In this case, we're going to be looking for API /. Now you'll notice that we found an instance where the API is being included using a hard-coded script tag. You can see that it includes the maps.googleapis.com URL, which means that it's loading the API. However, this is not WP Google Maps. If we continue searching, the second instance that we found is being pulled from maps.google.com. Now, both of these URLs pull exactly the same API, however, pulling them multiple times will create a multiple Google Maps API error, as seen in the console. This is our include from the latest basic version of WP Google Maps, and we know this by simply looking at the next script tag right below where the Google Maps API is being included, and we'll see a whole bunch of variables. WPG Maps localize, WPG Maps localize polygon settings, WPG Maps marker URLs, and so on and so forth. Now the crucial prefix to look for is WPGM. As you can see, WPGM is the prefix for WP Google Maps. This means that we want the site to load this version of the API. However, this first version of the API needs to be removed. Otherwise, the map will not work the way it's supposed to. So let's jump into our site and have a look at the theme. Alright, from the admin area, you want to hover over the Appearance button. Right at the bottom of the submenu, you'll see a button labeled Editor. Click on that now. This will open the Wordpress code editor for us. This will also open the default theme or the theme that has been selected for your site. In my case, it's the 2017 theme. If the API is being loaded from within the theme, there's a few files we should check first. We're going to open up the header.php file, the functions.php file, and the footer.php file. Generally in themes, this is where we'll find scripts being enqueued by the theme, and this is where we'll start looking for the API conflict. So let's start with the footer.php. As we can see, this is a standard footer file, and there's nothing out of the ordinary going on here. So let's do a Ctrl-F and search for API. We'll find no results. Let's move on to the next file then. We're now within the functions file. This is quite a lengthy file, so I wouldn't suggest going through it by hand. Simply use the Ctrl-F tool and search for API. You'll see that we found no results. So the conflict is not coming from the functions.php file. Let's search the header file, shall we? As you can see, we found the script tag here. This is definitely the script tag that's being included in the front end of the site. It is most likely the cause of the conflict. So, how do we go about removing this? We have a few options here. We could remove it from the theme. However, that could cause issues if the customer would like us to revert the changes we've made. So instead of that, we'll use standard HTML comments and simply comment out the entire line. Now, if this was being enqueued via PHP script, we would use PHP comments. However, this is just raw HTML, and as such, we have to use HTML comments. We can update the file now. It says the file has been edited successfully. So let's go have a look at the site again. As we can see, the map displays, but that was never the issue. Let's see if the map works the way it's supposed to. As we can see, dragging the map now works as it's intended. We can click on the marker and it'll show the info window. We can switch to satellite view, and we can zoom in and out. That covers resolving a theme-related multiple APIs issue. But next we'll have a look at what happens when we find the API being included by another plugin instead. One thing you should know about WP Google Maps is we do have a script running that attempts to remove any multiple Google Maps API errors before they occur. So how this works is we cycle through all the enqueued scripts in Wordpress, and we'll attempt to remove any conflicting scripts before the window loads. Okay, let's move over to a little test post that I've got going on here. As you can see, I have a small contact form below. This contact form plugin happens to also load the Google Maps API. Now, this is creating conflicts with our map. As we can see, I can't move the map around, I don't have a marker icon, and most of the functionality of the map is being altered in some way. So, let's see if we can find the API call. We're going to follow the same steps as we did earlier. We're going to hit Ctrl U, and here we have the HTML structure just as we did before. Let's try and find where the script is being enqueued, the same way we did earlier. We're going to hit Ctrl F, we're going to search for API /. Now notice we've got two results. Obviously this is what's causing the conflict on the page, but how do we distinguish which one is the conflicting call? Well, as I mentioned earlier, we can look at the next script tag, and we'll notice that all the localized variables are present here. This means that the first call to the API is loading the library before we localize any of our variables. This is most likely our call to the API. Now if we have a look at the next result on the page, which is found right below, coincidentally, we'll notice that this is loading after all of our localized variables from WP Google Maps, or at least that this will most likely be the API conflict. So, how do we know which plugin this is coming from? Let's have a look at the previous script being included right before the API is actually loaded. As we can see, this refers to the WP content folder /plugins /WP Google Maps. So we've already established that our API call is up here, and we know this due to the localized variables. So it's safe to say that we won't call the API twice ourselves. So let's have a look at the next script tag, which is included after we've called the second API. Firstly, we can see that we're also in the WP content folder, then in the plugins folder, and we can see that contact form builder is being loaded in. So certain JavaScript files are being loaded in which are related to the contact form builder plugin. It's safe to say that the contact form builder plugin is the most likely cause of the API being loaded twice. So let's jump into the code and see what we find. So from the admin area, we're going to hover over the plugins button on the left hand side. In the submenu, we're going to click on the button labeled editor. This will open up the code editor. From the drop-down menu, we're going to select the contact form builder plugin and hit the select button to open up the default PHP file for contact form builder. As you can see, this is quite a lengthy file, and I wouldn't suggest going through it by hand. Simply click inside the text area, hit Ctrl F, and search for API /. You'll notice that we found two results for API /. This means that two instances of the API are being registered. This is most commonly seen when a plugin makes use of the API on both the admin and the user side. The plugin will then reference either the user script or the admin script. So, how do I identify which one is which? Well, let's have a look at the first result. So we can see that it's being called from the contact form maker manage scripts function. Now, this doesn't give us too much of an indication of where this is being called. However, the comment right above that gives us all the information we need. As the comment reads, contact form builder manage page scripts. This would indicate that this function loads the scripts that are used within the managing area of the plugin. So let's have a look at the next result. Let's have a look at that function. As we can see, this is named contact form maker front end scripts. This is a much clearer description for a function, which is most likely the function which is calling the Google Maps API on the user side. So let's simply add a PHP comment to the register script here. As you can see, adding this comment will prevent the API from being enqueued or registered. So let's hit update file now. As we can see, the file was edited successfully. Let's have a look at the front end of the site now. As we can see, all the functionality has been restored on the map. We can zoom in and out, we can switch to satellite mode, and the map is working perfectly. The contact form will still work as it should, as we've prevented a conflict on not only our side, but their side as well. So, if you follow these steps, you should be able to resolve multiple Google Maps API errors on your own. I hope this video was helpful to you, and remember, if you need any help, just get in touch.